When someone develops a good or service and they put time and effort into it, and then you give them $1 or you give them dollars for that good or service that they've put time and energy into, I think it's disrespectful. It's disrespectful to give them something that you know is disintegrating in value over time and is like infinitely reproducible.
And I see Bitcoin really as a vessel for our energy. When we exchange energy, I think it's a very personal matter. And if we looked at money in that way, we would see things completely different.
I think it's very important to think about what is the purpose of money, what is the purpose of Bitcoin, which means that even if you only use it as a store of value, you want self-custody, you want to own your own money.
Bitcoin is the Schelling Point of money, and we are going to be the Schelling Point for custody and giving clarity to people's setup.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Sovereign Mindset Podcast. Today we have Quentin Ehrenmann and Charlie Stevens here. These are two entrepreneurs in El Salvador, and they're working on a startup called Schelling Point. And so today we're going to get into their journey, how they got to El Salvador, and talk a little bit more about the company that they're building. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, Michael, thank you for having us. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, it's an honor, Michael.
Awesome, cool. So let's start off with your journey. What brought you guys here to El Salvador?
Well, yeah, I suppose we could go on for a while with that, but I came about nearly 2 years ago now from London. I was in London. I was working in finance, and I had a Bitcoin ATM in Europe, but the banks were closing on me, so I had to find a place that was more Bitcoin friendly and where I could do business with Bitcoin and didn't feel like a criminal. So I sold my assets in Europe and moved over here, pretty much. So yeah, and it's been an absolute wild ride since arriving here in El Salvador. Total roller coaster. Met a real great bunch of people, including this man here to my right hand side, Quentin, and opportunities keep popping up, but this feels like a venture that I can put all my focus on over the next while. So it feels great.
Awesome. What about you, Quinn?
Well, that's a short and powerful backstory. For me, it's a bit longer. I basically fled France early 2022. In mandates, that kind of stuff. I decided to go travel in Mexico. Spent 6 months there. Then I went to El Salvador. Traveled around. And 6 months later, the NGO Mi Primer Bitcoin called me to go on an island called La Piraya and do social projects and Bitcoin education there. And this is how I arrived in El Salvador. Spent 6 months on this island and then joined Charlie and the guys at Bitcoin Berlin in the mountain. And I've been living there for a year and a half, almost.
Incredible. And so what's been your experience here in El Salvador? I take it you guys are really committed and dedicated towards building out the circular economy here. How's that been?
Well, for my experience, I went to Berlin when there was about 20 vendors accepting, and Gerardo and Evelyn were there, who founded the movement, and Rams, who's an American as well, who's working with Aqua Wallet. He's a lead developer, and basically the community's grown into something much bigger for what it is right now. It's full of Bitcoiners. I'd say around 2,000-3,000 people have Lightning wallets in Berlin, and there's a real culture of okay, this is Bitcoin City. Pretty much, people have taken it on as their money, even the locals. And even recently, there's been basically an outdoor art museum with murals, paintings, and a lot of them have Bitcoin entrenched in them. So there's a lot of Bitcoin symbolism there. It's been pretty amazing to not have to use the dollar and start seeing the businesses transition and using Bitcoin more and more, and even pricing their goods in sats, really kind of changing our mindset to more Bitcoin orientated. And it's only growing. So yeah, so far so good. You feel free living in a place like that. It's a bit isolated, Berlin. It's up in the mountains. So there's a bit of a filter for who gets there. And the people that tend to stay in Berlin are very much focused on the mission, on the Bitcoin mission of living in this hyper-Bitcoinized future, right?
Awesome. Is that similar experience for you, Quentin?
Yeah, definitely. It's a great place for Bitcoin adoption. Charlie, Gerardo, Evelyn, these guys have done an amazing job at orange pilling the businesses, but not only orange pilling them, but bringing them support to basically operate on a Bitcoin standard. And guys like me basically live on a Bitcoin standard in this circular economy, which is quite cool and something that you don't see in many places. You can basically go to any business and pay in Bitcoin and they get it. It's not a hassle and they're happy to receive Bitcoin. They save in Bitcoin. And this is where we come in with Schelling Point, basically, because we want to offer more than just accepting Bitcoin, but also how to secure your Bitcoin for the long term. So Bitcoin Berlin is kind of the case study for adoption for merchants, but also saving for the long term.
Yeah. It's interesting here because in the United States, through the school system and just kind of the development that's occurred over there, there's a savings culture, there's an investing culture over there that's already ingrained. And coming here to El Salvador, what you realize is that people lived in survival mode for so long that the idea of saving for the future is still kind of a foreign concept for a lot of people. And I think with Bitcoin, it allows you to do that. And so teaching the value proposition in regards to how Bitcoin allows you to save for the future, how it's a limited supply, and ingraining that into people's minds and changing their mindset is a big task. And it's good that you guys are taking it on from my perspective.
Oh yeah. Well, in America, as an example, I'd say a lot of people enter into the Bitcoin world through wanting to preserve their wealth over the long term. A lot of them use it as an investment vehicle or savings vehicle in general. And then when they discover Bitcoin enough, or they research it enough and learn about it, they start realizing that using it as a medium of exchange is important for Bitcoin to be used as money worldwide. Whereas in a place like Berlin, the first interaction that each merchant has with Bitcoin is using it as a medium of exchange. And through actual interacting with it, so doing it, they start to realize, oh, this can actually serve as well as a savings vehicle. And they may not be used to saving or not that much, but it just becomes much more intuitive to them. One thing is telling people what Bitcoin is in an abstract way. Another thing is actually them using it and seeing it in real cases, them being employed by Bitcoiners, them receiving Bitcoin, saving a percentage of it, starting to plan ahead, use that Bitcoin to buy stock for their company or their vendors. And it's just, you can see it step by step, month by month, their way of looking at things changing, which is just, it's amazing.
It goes to that adage, right? Like Bitcoin changes you. You don't change Bitcoin.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely. I have an anecdote. When I was in La Piraya, so it's an island that is very poor, very underdeveloped. And I could see that nobody was saving. Of course, they live day to day. Some of them even go fish basically and eat the fish that they get from the sea. So it's the economic development is very, very low. And you can see that people, some of the wealthier families there, they have these cinder blocks in their gardens. And basically that's how they save money. They purchase a ton of cinder blocks and they keep them because they know that it's going to go up in value due to inflation. So it's a way for them to save their money by purchasing the cinder blocks earlier.
Wow.
For when they're going to build the next room or whatever. So that's the way they save.
Wow, that's their capital.
Exactly. Yeah. So Bitcoin is much better than cinder blocks, and that's what we try to bring to people. But not only in poor places, like everywhere, inflation is eating up your savings. So you need to find a better vehicle for that.
Are you guys recognizing that idea is catching hold, especially with inflation, that Bitcoin is a way to kind of secure yourself from the negative impact of it?
Yeah, I do think so. But yeah, I think it's one aspect of it, I suppose, because obviously over the last year or couple of years, ETFs have been launched and governments have talked about it being used as a strategic reserve. But I think that is one element of it. You need to be able to use your Bitcoin at any point in time, anywhere in the world. That's the beauty of it. It's a digital savings.
Well, let's tackle that real quick, right? There is kind of this tension between store of value and medium of exchange. People are saying, look, nobody's going to spend their Bitcoin. That's the argument, because right now there's so much upside still to be gained. We're going to really focus on the store of value narrative first. But what's your take on that? And what's your experience here in El Salvador, where Bitcoin is legal tender, where you can use it as daily currency? Do you see people using it? I know you guys use it in your own life. What's that experience been like?
On my own take, a lot of people are disincentivized to use their Bitcoin as a medium of exchange, especially if you're coming from the United States, as you're taxed at anywhere in the world, and you obviously don't want to spend your Bitcoin and have a taxable event. That's understandable, but people have to take into account that these states and those who control the Federal Reserve, let's say, or the tax office, this is their income. The more people use the dollar, the better for the people working for the state, and they're the ones who impose the laws. So, you have to take into account that you're kind of pushing against someone when you're using Bitcoin as money. But overall, I think it's like imprescindible in Spanish. It's extremely important for us to use Bitcoin as money. And in Berlin, it's culture. People have that culture of spending. They use Bitcoin. Even the locals now like use it anywhere, and that's great. But I think in other parts of the country, it's just not seen that way. And we know a lot of people who just don't use their Bitcoin. They use the cash that they have. And this is something that I want to drive home to people when talking about this. When someone develops a good or service and they put time and effort into it, and they've developed skills to be able to provide this good or service, and then you give them $1 or you give them dollars for that good or service that they've put time and energy into, I think it's disrespectful. I think it's disrespectful to give them something that is disintegrating in value over time and is like infinitely reproducible, and you're giving it for their time. And that act of exchange, I think, is really important. So if I give you Bitcoin, which is scarce and really hard to get and really hard to reproduce, it's an act of good. It's a good action. It's something that's pure that I'm giving to you. And I think the goods and services will end up reflecting the medium of exchange that we use for goods or services. They'll end up increasing in quality and durability, etc.
You're giving me goosebumps here, dude. Because
that's a Charlie.
Well, that's how I see it as well.
Really?
And I see Bitcoin really as a vessel for our energy. And when we exchange energy, I think it's a very personal matter. And if we looked at money in that way, we would see things completely different. And I agree. Quentin, any thoughts there?
Definitely. So to me, Bitcoin is money, and money has different aspects. It can be a medium of exchange. It can be a unit of account. It can be a store of value, and probably many other things. What I find interesting is whether you're disincentivized to use it as a medium of exchange or not, and maybe you just use it as store of value. I think it's very important to think about what is the purpose of money. What is the purpose of Bitcoin? And in that case, to me, and I think to many, many Bitcoiners, it's sovereignty, which means that even if you only use it as a store of value, you want self-custody. You want to own your own money. You don't want to leave it on an ETF or an exchange or whatever. Like, even if you're exposed to the number go up effect, that's nothing. That's not what you're looking for long term. What you're looking for, or maybe you're just here for the gains, and that's good for you, but you're missing on the biggest part of what Bitcoin is, which is money that gives you sovereignty over your wealth and what you're producing. And for that, you need self-custody. And once you have self-custody, you realize that Bitcoin is much more than number go up, and you can start really using it as money, as a currency. Again, maybe you're disincentivized to do so in the short term, but you should not miss the forest for the trees. You should think long term, and long term, you need sovereignty, you need freedom, you need to be able to basically do something else, even though your government says you should do something. You should be able to say, no, I won't do that, and I will be able to move with my money away, move to another country, move to El Salvador, move somewhere else, and basically just say, I won't do what you tell me.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Nice.
So, first of all, I think that once people start using Bitcoin, start saving in it, start developing their mindset around Bitcoin, sound money, it changes them, it changes their perspective, and it allows them to see their true power. And as I think something that you were alluding to, it's the agency that you have with it. It's the optionality that you have with it. It's the liberation that comes with it, that you get to assert yourself on this world. And it's your way of giving consent, you know? And so you can now with Bitcoin, you can remove your consent if you want to. And that's something that you can't do when you're stuck in the fiat system. So very powerful. But let's get into El Salvador real quick. Let's talk about, you know, the changes that have happened here. If I can get you guys' opinion on that. You guys are a Bitcoin company here in El Salvador. What do you guys think is happening here versus the headlines that are taking place?
I'll let Quentin go first.
So I think everything that's happening is interesting. What I've always found interesting in El Salvador was not Bitcoin being legal tender, which it's not anymore. It was the network effect. It was the self-fulfilling prophecy of Bitcoiners coming to a country that made Bitcoin legal tender. And because of that, it de facto became Bitcoin country. Bitcoiners came to the country, so Bitcoiners came to the country, so Bitcoiners came to the country. And that's what I was really interested in. I'm still interested in that. The things that are happening in the country make me question that long term. I don't know where we're going. I like to not trust. I like to verify.
Absolutely.
And I feel like I haven't been able to verify much in the last few months. So I am always careful. I'm not a patriot in my home country, so I won't be in El Salvador either. I will always question what is happening. And for now, I feel like I don't have enough clarity to decide what the future holds. So we'll see.
And for you, Charlie?
I'm going to contrast it a little bit. I do think that a lot of people have been put off by the recent news. Obviously, the IMF coming in. I'm a bit of an optimist, an eternal optimist in general. And like it hurts me to say, but like just listen to Nayib. I'm just enamored by his words and presence and the way he speaks, and I believe he's really intelligent and he's leading, you know, a good charge. And I suppose it's probably this hopium of this idea of this, you know, shining light at the top of a hill, you know. But I think people need that, you know, to be able to build what they want. They need to believe that ideal. And I believe we're going through a really, really, really large structural change in the world and the way the world order, really. We're going from a top down to I suppose, a decentralized monetary system. So, as Quentin says, don't trust, verify. I'm not making any conclusions, right? I believe that El Salvador has huge potential for growth. I believe there's enough people who've come and committed to the country that are Bitcoiners. Like being able to hang out with you yesterday for just a little bit and being surrounded by Bitcoiners who are focused on health, long-term thinking. There's a lot of individuals around our age group as well who, you know, haven't got families yet, but want to build a family. That really excites me. You know, that really excites me that people trust El Salvador as a safe place to be able to have kids. So I'm committed to, you know, the next few years in El Salvador. And I think having a passport and having citizenship somewhere like El Salvador can give you optionality for the future, right? Now, given that I'm a Bitcoiner and mobile, you know, and I want to be able to see other areas in the world, places that are growing, and I'd like connections to be made between El Salvador and other areas that are Bitcoin friendly. I think that's really important, that the trade opens up between those places and the people are able to flow easily between these places. We never know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen in Europe at the moment. I'm obviously connected to that because a lot of my family are in Europe, and there's a lot of fear in terms of like war and the European Union talking about stockpiling food for 72 hours and things like this that cause fear. I want to be able to have a base here. So if shit happens, you know, I've got 5 sisters, you know, and for them to be able to have an option to move somewhere if they were really stuck in a rut, which you have to be open that this stuff can happen, you know.
We live in a very tumultuous time, right?
True.
Like you said, we are undergoing massive structural changes all over the place. Trump just announced tariffs the other day. So in terms of the uncertainty that's palpable in the air, it's everywhere too, especially in Europe, right? And I'm sure in the United States too. So I 100% agree with that like assessment as far as like, you know, having a plan B for family and stuff like that. And it seems like El Salvador is a good place for that. Going to what both of you said, I share both of your perspectives, right?
And I share as well his perspective. I think he makes a great point.
Yeah, you kind of have to approach this in a more rational way where you have to anticipate not everything is going to evolve the way you want it to evolve, even though I'm very much principles based and I don't trust, I verify. And it's hard for me to trust a politician or a leader, especially when there are indications counter to what I thought the narrative was. But at the same time, you have to understand that politics is a weird game. It's a game that I don't understand. And there's certain factors that go on behind the curtain, which, you know, I don't know how things are playing out. And so there's an element that we do actually have to trust. And, you know, you have to rely on certain other indicators, whether it be the people in the community that have that are more in the know, and also the speeches and the talks and the way that a person conducts themselves, being very observant of that and seeing that, okay, you know, because of the nature of politics, they have to be more strategic and they can't just be as blatant. They have a whole country to operate, right? And they have a whole country to run. And so, you know, I'm just here myself. I got my responsibility. I can say whatever I want on this mic, you know, because it's only me who bears the consequences. And so, you know, I do have to remain optimistic in that regard and just hope that I put my chips in the right basket, so to say. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you can't build unless you have to trust at some degree, or else you're just constantly in fear and never actually building a base or whatever.
True.
So,
Yeah.
you know, you just have to think, if something bad happens, can you move? And if the answer is yes, then keep building, you know, and, you know, fear is the biggest stagnator, right? It just really is.
That's a very good point. I would say be optimistic, but be cautiously optimistic always.
Get skeptical.
Yeah. A little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've a lot of confidence in the people that are around.
Yeah. I mean, sorry to cut you off, but
no.
I'm bullish on Bitcoiners. And I think even though I love El Salvador for many other reasons, I love El Salvador for the Bitcoiners that came here to participate in rebuilding this country and building it better than it was. So that's one of the only things that matter to me.
And you know, it's interesting, going back to your name, Schelling Point, that's what I saw El Salvador becoming for people that
100%.
think outside the box, and for people that are action oriented, that want to look at the world and say, hey, I can make this better somehow, some way. And it seems like that energy is here in El Salvador. It's contagious, it's energetic. And I've met some of the most interesting people in the year and a half that I've been here. So it's been awesome in that regard.
Yeah. And I'm sure a lot of more people, as things kind of, some feathers are ruffled across the globe, more people will start to get their way here.
Let me get to current events a little bit and kind of hear your guys' take on what's going on in Europe. You guys are both from Europe, right? Yeah. France and Ireland. What's your take on what's happening there as far as the geopolitics and the situation there? Do you see it getting better, getting worse?
I'll be honest, I don't watch the news. So it's just like living on a Bitcoin standard. I don't watch the Bitcoin price.
So you totally kind of divorce yourself from France.
Yeah. Sometimes I talk to friends and they tell me that maybe we'll go to war with Russia. And I'm like, oh.
Wow.
Well, you know, I live in El Salvador. So I'm good here. Basically.
That's a really healthy way to be, I think. Yeah, the way I look at it is, as you were saying, here people are forward focused. Like, what's the world that I want to build in the future? In Europe, everyone's like in the past or living kind of more day to day. Or what festival am I going to go to this year? That's like the extent of the planning that goes on for a lot of individuals.
Yeah, and that's talk about energy to be around, especially when you're an entrepreneur or you're someone forward focused. I mean, to be around that energy where people are on a different wavelength, it could be very taxing on your soul. And so that's the other thing about El Salvador that excites me too. When you're here, it's like, oh, I'm around people that get it, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're building a business that will still be around in 50 years time. That's the plan. And the feeling that you're building something that will last for a very long time. That's the energy that I want to be around. That's the people that I want to be around, and that's what I want to contribute towards. Because only through time the best things are made. You know, that's a cliche saying, as wine or cheese or. So here we get the chance to be able to think that far ahead, and in Europe, the it's just the lies. To be honest, I don't want to be around lies. I don't want to be around people saying things for the sake of it because it's the right thing to say because it's politically correct or because and that's very very present, and it's not only from the top, but it's also inculcated in the individuals who make up the country, and it's a very godless place in the sense that people are just more cynical. This is very pessimistic, but like that's the vibe that I'm getting from Europe. And when I went back from Australia to Europe, I was disgusted with just the energy. And I apologize. I don't know why, but that's just how I felt, and I needed to get out of there, and I needed to go somewhere else.
Well, we're in a room with 3 Europeans right now. It's pretty interesting. It seems like El Salvador is the place to come to if you're in Europe. So if you're listening to this and you're in Europe and you want to build and you align with the Bitcoin ethos, there's a home for you here in El Salvador, and there's people that will welcome you.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, it's true. I mean, that's the vibe in Europe, and I agree.
Yeah.
So then let's end this on a good note. What's the vision here for El Salvador? What do you see happening here? What's the future like?
Well, like as capital starts to flow in, infrastructure starts to get built, a wider range of products and services start to get delivered, more cultures start to come into the country and build their take on things. An increase of savings and private capital accumulation in the country, which is just going to be amazing. Different types of entrepreneurs developing different ideas coming from all different angles across the country. I'm extremely bullish for what can come, what sort of businesses start to form, what sort of individuals, people start to come into this country and live here. And yeah, I truly believe in this renaissance. I know it's used a lot, but I truly believe that this is coming and that we need to push it. And it's not about just seeing it, but also participate in it. And I'm really grateful that we've got some French touch here because just bringing the quality into the country, and you can see that up in Berlin, a place that's like has been ravaged through civil war, but some Bitcoiners bringing their own little touch to the place and bringing up the quality of life of individuals, and seeing the students, oh my God, come out of the school educated in Bitcoin and really trying to build a life for themselves. I'm really excited to see the next 5 to 10 years as the Salvadoreño workforce, starts to come out and they're educated in Bitcoin. Bitcoiners start to come in, set up their little areas. I don't know what's going to come, but I know it's going to be extremely positive, and the average standard of living is going to increase. That's
Nothing to add.
Wow, yeah, that was a good
was really
summary.
good.
I'm pumped now.
That was really good.
So where are you guys at now then? Yeah, awesome. Where are you guys at now then as far as your journey here to El Salvador? You guys are building the startup Schelling Point.
Yeah,
Shall we get into that a little bit?
for sure. I think we're only at the start of understanding what we can do with Bitcoin. I think we're at the very, very start. Because there hasn't been too many circular economies around the world, not many businesses have used Bitcoin regularly. So being in the circular economy has really opened my eyes as to like the just pure levels of use that you can have with Bitcoin. And not only can you have a single signature wallet, but you can also have multi-signature wallet with your friends or family. I've been able to set up a few funds with my family, with different businesses, with our own business, where we have different variations of multi-signature accounts. And you can start varying in it depending on your own situation, which is extremely exciting because it's money and you can access it whenever you want and you don't need the permission of any single entity. It's up to you and how creative you want to be on how to structure your Bitcoin. So we're here to talk that through with people.
Yeah, that's interesting because the way Bitcoin is set up, the way the technology allows you to operate, you now can think of multiple ways to not only secure your Bitcoin, but to also create organizations and plan for the future, right?
Definitely. So what's interesting about Bitcoin is when you own Bitcoin, you really own the keys to an asset that lives on everyone's computer. So you have a distributed ledger, let's say, and what you own really is the keys to that Bitcoin. So you can have one key, you can have multiple keys, you can even divide the keys further into different schemes. And in a way, it is programmable money in that sense, because you control how you can access and from where you can access your money. So you can basically create setups that you can access just in that place, or maybe in different countries, or accessible by only yourself, or yourself and your family, yourself and your heirs, yourself and your children. So you can basically create an infinite amount of combinations of ways to access your money worldwide digitally, which is insane when you think about it. And what we are trying to provide through our services is to create setups that make sense for you, your situation, and your goals, what purpose you have for your Bitcoin. And we basically just give clarity to people. So it all starts with purpose. And again, I think it ties back into the store of value, medium of exchange narratives. If you only see it as a store of value, that's cool, but you also need to think long-term. And what will the purpose of your Bitcoin be in like 10, 15 years? So we try to give that to people, to give that perspective, knowing that we're living on a Bitcoin standard, but not everyone is. We're trying to give that perspective to people and say, now that you have purpose, let's create setups that make sense for you and the purpose and the vision that you have for your Bitcoin long term.
So I imagine there's a big educational component to your consulting services too.
Absolutely. Like they talk about education, Bitcoin education, but it really is super important, you know. And when we're talking about a whole paradigm shift of the monetary base of the world, it requires reprogramming your own head and like how to think about money in general. And I think this point is really important. It's about the client, and a lot of them haven't thought about these things. So it's really just asking pointed questions. It's kind of like therapy in a way. No, I haven't really done therapy, but but like you start to ask people, and what's your purpose and why are you on this planet? And you know, how are you going to let your money bring your purpose to light? You know, everyone is here for some reason, but the beautiful thing about money is it's this tool that can amplify whatever your vision is of the world or how it should be and what legacy you want to leave. And, you know, people have this culture, oh, I just stack as many sats as I want, never sell. And I think that's a really valuable way of like increasing your Bitcoin holdings, you know, and that culture. And I understand hodling and don't sell, don't be liable to all the fluctuations. But that's only the start. That's only the very, very start. When we start looking in 5, 10, 15, 20, 50 years down the line, when your Bitcoin starts to increase in purchasing power, you can do whatever you want. You know?
It's an interesting perspective. I think it's the right perspective, because here's the other thing. As Bitcoin continues to do what it does, right? Continues to integrate itself throughout the world and the financial economies, you know, its power is going to grow. And if you hold the keys to your Bitcoin, you have some of that power. And so for a lot of people, it's a new thing. And it's like, okay, now what are you going to do? Right?
Yeah.
Are you going to give in to the material trappings and kind of, you know, go through that process? Or are you going to make an impact in the world in some type of way with the power that you've now accumulated through owning Bitcoin and using Bitcoin?
Exactly. I think Bitcoin is just a means to an end, and the end is sovereignty and freedom. You can stack as many sats as you want if you still live in a country in which you don't feel free and you're not achieving things that you would like to do for yourself, your family, your community, then I would even go as far as to ask, like, what have you done? Like, you've stacked sats. Okay, that's cool. I mean, it's really a good chunk of it, but it's not all of it. Like, then you need to create a life that makes sense to you and that reflects your values and your purpose as well in life. So I think it's a big question for everyone to ask ourselves, like, what is my purpose? What do I want to do? And I'm not saying I have the answer. I'm still looking for what my purpose is, but I think it's a quest that everyone is on, and Bitcoin is just the vehicle that can take you somewhere in your life. It's not the end goal. The end goal is not to stack as many sats as you want.
Yeah. I've always kind of looked at Bitcoin. Well, not always, but as it's gone through its process of, price increases and stuff like that, and I've been impacted, it's kind of turned into a personal development vehicle, because all of a sudden you have to ask yourself some really tough questions. And you're like, oh, I'm not prepared for this level. I need to now, go back to the drawing board and figure out what it is that I want out of life, how I'm going to develop my skill sets in order to produce that. And now I have Bitcoin that is there to help me on this process. And so it's been really interesting, the introspection that comes when you own Bitcoin.
Exactly. And then at some point you ask yourself, like, what am I doing in El Salvador?
Yeah.
And it's the start of a new adventure. So, I mean, yeah, I fully agree with you.
Yeah. Awesome. So let's say I'm a client or a potential client. I come to you guys. Let's say, first of all, let's ask the question, who are you guys looking to serve? Is it just the person who just started their Bitcoin journey, or is it high net worth individuals, or is it a spectrum in between?
Yeah, this is a good question. And it's something that we are ongoing and trying to decide who is our perfect client. We have several clients already. They're mainly in Europe. Also, a couple of them are here. And it's people who... This is the way I look at it. It's people who have Bitcoin. They have it in some form. They usually have it in an exchange. I think 95% of individuals who own Bitcoin have it on an exchange, right?
That's a ridiculous number, by the way.
It's outrageous. And it's people who know that there is something going up. They know that they've been fed lies a lot in mainstream media, and they're kind of skeptical of their government and the financial system that is around them. That's the traditional financial system. So they're skeptical about it. They own a little bit of Bitcoin. They know that there's more to it. There's no more to Bitcoin. They're willing to be humble enough to say that they don't know everything, because a lot of people say, "Oh, I know Bitcoin," and they don't have a clue. And they're curious to find out more and to take their savings seriously and to know that, okay, this is actually powerful. But they need a guide. They need people who have gone through the process. They need someone who's specialized in it. And Schelling Point is that vehicle, that specialized vehicle, in the form of myself and Quentin as it stands. We have plans on expanding, obviously, but they can reach out to us and they can say, yeah, no, I want to take it more seriously. What do I do? So we do a strategy session. We start off with the strategy session.
Yeah, exactly. To piggyback on that, if you buy Bitcoin, even if it's on an exchange, it means you have some kind of distrust of the financial system, of the fiat system, of the world we live in, and you are probably more akin to look for solutions or alternatives to the legacy system. So, but still, as Charlie said, you need more than that, because otherwise you're just you have Bitcoin on an exchange. So our target is those people that know something's wrong, but they don't have the time, they don't have the energy, they don't have the knowledge to get from there to self-custody, owning your own keys, and being sovereign and owning your own money. So we just hold their hands and take them through the process that we know that we have good expertise on, and we provide them with that setup that gives them full sovereignty over their money, basically.
Yeah, just I want to go through as well my own journey. I thought I knew everything about Bitcoin. I had a good setup, and then I came to El Salvador, and I met Quentin early on in my journey, and I did his protocol, inheritance protocol, and it's extremely valuable. He's done over 20 hours of really high quality video content on how to do your security setup. And I realized my setup was shite. It was terrible. And through that process, you get to really doubt like what you have yourself and be able to iterate through your own security process itself. And that really, really helped me be able to develop something for myself, for my family, for my friends, and for the other businesses. And then on my side of things, I believe Quentin is specialized on the security setup and the matrix on how to do that. But my kind of role would be on the purpose side of things, where my background is maths and finance and long-term investing. It's asking the right questions, the pointed questions to the clients, and really getting them to figure out, how do I apply purpose to the Bitcoin that I hold?
Yeah. One of the challenges I see with Bitcoin and getting people to so-called take the orange pill is it's almost like you got to force it. I don't know if you guys seen this movie, They Live, where there's this character there that recognizes that reality isn't really the way it's being presented, and he wants other people to kind of see it. And there's these glasses that allow you to see what's really going on in society. And is this famous fight scene that's like 30 minutes where he's actually trying to put the glasses on somebody so they can see the truth. And so I see that as kind of analogous to like getting people to see, the value proposition of Bitcoin, how it could help them, how it could serve them. And it's really, you're in this case, you really rely on people taking it upon themselves to reach out to you to be like, hey, I want to put on those glasses. I want to take the orange pill. I want to know what's actually happening. So I see that as a potential challenge. But what would be some other pain points that people would kind of go through in order to, reach out to you guys and say, hey, can you help me out?
Yeah. So a lot of people who are older are not as tech savvy. So it's something really simple, like doing a transaction or understanding what a hardware wallet is, or why is it 12 words, or how do I see my wallet on my phone where I can receive funds, but I can't spend it on my phone through an Xpub. These things that we take for granted that we know already because we've done the study, we've done the practice of it continuously. A lot of people don't have that practice, and showing them that is like a huge pain point that we just kind of.
Another pain point, sorry, just thinking out loud here. Another pain point I could see coming up is like, okay, what happens if something happens to me? Like, what if I die? What happens to my Bitcoin? Is that a problem that you guys solve as well?
Yeah, definitely. The idea is that you create a setup that makes sense for your situation, and also you create a backup plan that makes sense for your heirs, your brothers or sisters or children or grandchildren to be able to access your Bitcoin in any event of death, or like if you get incapacitated or something like this.
Can you go into that? So you actually built a protocol that deals with this exact problem?
So the protocol I built is something that I built before we started Schelling Point. It was a project that I called the Bitcoin Backup. And basically, it's a protocol that I built for myself, first and foremost. So I have skin in the game. And it's basically a 3 of 5 with a passphrase on top of each seed, and the idea, and the same passphrase on top of each seed. And we're getting a bit technical there, but the idea is that you segregate the seeds and the passphrase, and you give the passphrase to the heirs, and you give the seeds to your guardians. And that way, even though there is still a trust model, meaning that if your whole family colludes, they can take your Bitcoin. You spread it out in such a way and in packages that nobody knows about, really. Like they don't have a plan of what is happening, let's say.
Do they just know that they have to come together if something happens? Yeah.
So basically, you have all the documentation within each recovery package, so that your heirs can just open it, and this is what the setup looks like. This is how you recover the wallet. This is how you recover the Xpub, whatever. Like not getting too much into the details, but they have the full protocol to recover the Bitcoin. Basically.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's advanced, and this is definitely something that we can do if someone wants that. It's really, you implement self-inheritance for your family. You create a multi-generational vault. That's really cool, but it's advanced. That's why I made it free and open source, so that people can just use it. That's my contribution to the Bitcoin space. But yeah, even with simpler setups, the idea is distributing backups to the right people in the right way, encrypted, not encrypted, so that they can recover your wallet in case you die, basically. And depending on how the wallet is set up, the backups will be shared in a different way. And we have a whole matrix and scenarios on what setup is best for what individual and their situation. So the first step is understanding our client. I think something that is interesting with Bitcoin and Bitcoiners is Bitcoin is such a good solution that we don't even look for a problem anymore. We just bring the solution and it's like Bitcoin, Bitcoin, Bitcoin. That's cool. But we also need to understand who we have in front of us and how we can help them really deeply in their life, in their situation, in their fears, etc., etc. So we really have to ask the right questions in a right way as well, because we don't really want to know the details of their situation. We just want to understand the framework in which we operate and on which we can apply a targeted solution in terms of Bitcoin setup.
Very interesting.
Couldn't have put that any better, to be honest.
Cool. So you're based here in El Salvador, Schelling Point. Do you take on international clients as well?
Yeah, we've got multiple clients in Europe already, Australia. One of our clients, is in India. There's anywhere. Obviously, we have an office up in Berlin at the moment, and we do in-person meetings as well if people want to do that. But yeah, so anybody can like reach out and do a strategy session, see if our services would be of value to them.
Yeah, and the free strategy session is valuable even if you don't take even if you don't buy the product, because basically we create a setup for you that you can use even if you don't pay for it, because what we sell is the implementation. We share the knowledge for free and we sell the implementation.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds very generous of you guys, but also very helpful. And it's interesting because Bitcoin kind of creates this collaborative effect on the network. It's where like the more people are educated and know about it, the more stronger the network grows. So I could definitely see that being like also beneficial for you guys in the long run too.
Yeah,
it's proof of work basically. Like you have to show something to get something in return, I guess.
Right. You want more people to have confidence in moving more of their wealth into Bitcoin as well. Like we've gotten to a stage where we have most of our wealth in Bitcoin, if not all, or liquid wealth. And if people have a decent security setup, they're going to sleep better at night that they have that there, and that means that a larger proportion of cash balances will transition over to Bitcoin. The market cap will increase, which then makes everyone around us wealthier and allows us to accelerate in our journey of hyper Bitcoinization. So yeah.
Can I?
Yeah.
Sorry, were you gonna say something?
I was just about to say that basically you can create a setup that is much better than what you currently have, so that then you can stack more Bitcoin. You feel more confident to stack more Bitcoin because your setup is more secure. So it's, you build the house while you live in it, I
think confidence is a big one. And I think you're right. Like the more that people are confident, the more that they're willing to like interact with the network, self-custody and so forth. Yeah. And so if you can provide that for people, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah. I was even talking to my mother and, I was saying, what would be your ideal scenario? And the truth of the matter is a lot of people don't want to have the responsibility of their own 12 words. They don't. They want to give that to somebody else. And that's a real pity because you lose a lot of sovereignty, as you were saying. And I truly believe it's because their setup is not good. It doesn't have to be difficult. If you're guided in the right way, it can be very intuitive and it can be very easy to access. So we want to make it convenient for people to have sovereignty over their money. And that's our process. And it's an ongoing process of learning what is the best setup for each individual. And it's not just the initial setup, but it's also the follow-ups that are really powerful, because it's a lifetime journey. You're all your savings, your pension, your retirement is going to be in Bitcoin, and having someone that you can rely on, that you can call or text and be like, listen, what do I do in this situation? I'm thinking of doing this with my Bitcoin. What do you suggest? I think it gives a lot of people peace, and ease to know that they have people who are specialized in that area.
Absolutely. Especially, the older non-tech savvy folks. And I can imagine baby steps being part of the process too. Like, hey, we're just going to set up a hardware wallet and we're going to get you, your 12 words and get you holding your private keys, but you don't have to put any Bitcoin in there, or start with just sending a transaction in there and then making a purchase, see how that feels, get familiar with the process, and we're there to hold your hands. Is that a service that you would provide? Yeah,
exactly. Once the wallet is set up, you can use it. You can start putting money in it as you feel more confident in that, and you trust your wallet. So yeah,
and trust yourself.
And trust yourself. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we're also looking at platforms where all of our clients can join, and they can help out each other with questions, so that it's a community essentially. I know yourself, Michael, you've been focused a bit on communities, but this is a really great way to meet like-minded individuals who are on the same journey. And as we expand, as we take on more clients, we'll start to bolster out what we offer and our services.
Yeah, I think that's going to be huge, because when you get people in a community who are all facing similar problems and have themselves found a solution to it, or have been educated by you guys in finding a solution to it, there's something about Bitcoin where you want to strengthen the network. And then the way to do that is you bring people in. It's kind of cultish in that sense, but in a good way, right? And so, it also then reinforces what they learned, right? Because it's not just good enough to take in the knowledge and apply it, but then when you teach it, it's like, okay, I really understand this now. And that then breeds more confidence to go further as well. Yeah. So it's like a feedback loop that you can generate with a community.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We try to accelerate the network effects of self-custody, basically.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Nice way to put it.
So what's the roadmap? Where are you guys at right now on that roadmap, and what does it look like for the future?
Yeah, so we are, I suppose, defining exactly the products. We have, I suppose, thinking of 3 different tiered products of the lowest tiered, let's say the lowest tiered. The first product would be just a course on how to do it, and then support through text, and then a follow-up session maybe 3 months down the line. That would be like the lowest tiered. Then we have medium, which is live sessions, so 2 live sessions on purchasing the hardware wallet, getting it set up, getting it configured, doing test transactions, figuring out how that works, and then eventually 3 months later, checking up on how do they have their packages, how do they have their backups, and see if they still have it intact, if they have any questions, and then we're good. Maybe in 1 year's time, then we check in with them again. And then the final one is 5 live sessions and regular follow-ups, contact with us with the group chat. And yeah, we'd also offer ways in order to make it a bit more complex, depending on what they want to do with the Bitcoin. If they have a business themselves, how do they want to apply their Bitcoin in buckets? Like the Bitcoin Center, for example, has a reserve, but it has Bitcoin destined to different functions, different projects, and they have Bitcoin that has come from different areas. So being able to categorize that and have a clear picture of your Bitcoin really helps you be able to have a clear picture of your own future. And that's really good. So our roadmap is get this course finished, which should be done in the next 40 days, I'd say. That's my thinking. And then we want to focus on more individuals. We want to increase our client base, obviously. And then we want to focus on clients that also are entrepreneurs. So how do they structure their business with Bitcoin? And how do they integrate Bitcoin within their business? And this is a learning journey for us as well, because more tools are coming out. Quentin was showing me this morning this amazing tool where you can, with a multi-signature wallet, it's a pain in the backside, because you need to send in sensitive information through messaging apps. It's a pain. And to be able to sign transactions and then tell the other person, oh, I need that signed. There are apps, there are tools that are being made to make this much more intuitive. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about this.
Yeah,
tool.
it's called Bitcoin Safe. And basically you can do remote multi-sig signing via Nostr collaboration. So you can have multiple devices that trust each other because you basically send a request and you accept it as a trusted device. And you create a transaction, you sign it, you send it to the other device, they sign it, they broadcast it, done. So you don't have to use any third-party apps. It's done over Nostr within the app. It's called Bitcoin Safe.
Wow.
And they've just released a new update. And I think it's just one guy. So I mean, really, really cool. It's an alternative to Sparrow, which I really like. But the collaboration through Nostr is really, really a game changer for remote collaborative transaction signing.
So this is just an example of tools that we will be implementing for individuals if they require it.
So was going to be one of my questions as well, right? Like, for instance, from the hardware wallet to the software, do you guys vet the tools that they're using and the hardware that they're using?
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah. We have recommended hardware wallets that we want to offer people and recommended tools, and obviously prefer open source tools. Sparrow wallet as, you know, a tool to use, usually the Passport as a hardware wallet as an example. These are just things that we've used ourselves, and we know through trial and error that they work and that they'll be, it's a long-term solution because we're talking about savings. I just want to touch on the roadmap a little bit as well. Coming up to November, which is adopting Bitcoin and the other conferences, we're going to be focused on being present there and being able to show to people what our services are. And we've started with Berlin as a circular economy, but I believe circular economies are going to start growing all across the world. So we want to be present everywhere in the world. We want to be the Schelling Point for Bitcoin custody services.
Well, real quick, let's talk about that name because it's well known within the Bitcoin space. But do you guys have an explanation to what Schelling Point is and how it fits your guys' business model?
So a Schelling Point is it's a concept in game theory that means it's the converging point in which two parties will agree on without communication. So let's say you and I meet in a town and we can't communicate and we don't know where we're gonna meet. We'll probably go to the central square or to the church or something like this.
Like we will make up our minds without talking to each other based on the most likely outcome on where we're going to be. Yeah,
exactly. So it's this converging point, and for Bitcoin self-custody, it's us.
Oh, that is very cool.
Exactly. Yeah. Bitcoin is the Schelling Point of money. And we are going to be the Schelling Point for custody and for giving clarity to people's setups, like clarity and purpose, people's Bitcoin setup. That's it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Anything else that you guys want to talk about Schelling Point?
I think we've covered most of it.
Yeah. I'm really, really excited for the next few months and next years. I'm delighted to be in business with Quentin. Really, really great mind and individual. Michael, thank you very much for your attention, for letting us be on the podcast. It's a real honor.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on and having this discussion. It was just enlightening, illuminating, and very positive and invigorating. So thank you, gents, and look forward to seeing what you guys do.
Definitely. Thank you, Michael.
Michael, thanks a million.
You got it.